You have more power than you can imagine, Jean. The question is, will you control that power, or let it control you?
Welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. The first official trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness confirmed the long-held rumors that Patrick Stewart was going to return as Professor Charles Xavier. But what we really want to know is this the professor that we already know, or a variant professor? One who's already encountered a variant of the Scarlet Witch in his own reality. I know what you're going to say, there's already a Wanda in the X-Men films. I'm going to talk about that later.
We should tell him the truth.
In the trailer, Mordo tells Strange that
your desecration of reality will not go unpunished.
And then we see Strange handcuffed and escorted by Ultron bots to what we believe is a multiversal council of the Illuminati. Now, we've covered this in other videos, but the Illuminati in the comics are a group of hero team leaders who coordinate their efforts to protect the Earth, but they do it in secret. It looks like the Illuminati and Doctor Strange are a similar council, except they are protecting the multiverse. Wow. Then, as Strange approaches, we hear the voice of one Sir Patrick Stewart.
We should tell him the truth.
Followed by a quick shot of a bald man not walking in, but obviously rolling or hovering in, giving us all the confirmation we need that this is indeed Patrick Stewart reprising his role as Professor X.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
So, what does this reveal mean for the MCU? Is this the same Professor X we've met before in the Fox X-Men films? Now, keep in mind that we've seen variant timelines in that franchise as well, meaning that we've seen variant Professor X's. The first one was a Professor X whose story starts with the film X-Men First Class and goes through to the apocalyptic future of X-Men Days of the Future Past. Secondly, we have another Professor X whose story also starts with X-Men First Class, but then splinters off to a new timeline where Wolverine was sent back in time to prevent that aforementioned apocalyptic future. And finally, we have essentially an Elseworld version of the Professor in Logan. His history is likely very similar to that of his alternate timeline counterparts. We also need to mention that this Professor X in his old age has cataclysmic seizures that can be lethal to those around him. He ultimately dies at the hands of a Wolverine clone.
Hello, man.
Now, the question is the Xavier in Multiverse of Madness one of these three?
Hello, man.
Okay, not that one. Or is this a variant of Charles Xavier that we've never met before? Perhaps an Xavier who's dealt with characters like the Scarlet Witch in the past. Now, I can't wait to find out what happened to his world that led him to become part of this multiversal Illuminati.
You and I have a lot of catching up to do.
We've theorized about the other members of this council, and it makes sense they would all be protecting the multiverse. Characters like Kang, Doctor Strange, Baron Mordo, they all have some role in protecting reality, but not Professor X. So why is he on this council? Well, we think this variant of Professor X will be very similar to the versions we've met before, but his universe turned out a lot darker. He'll still have his old friend turned enemy Magneto, he probably founded a school for mutants and founded the X-Men, and then he mentored an incredibly powerful red-haired pupil and simultaneously held her back. Which pupil was this? Wanda Maximoff. That's right, we think that this Professor Xavier mentored Wanda instead of Jean Grey in his reality, but more on that theory later. First, let's talk about why Doctor Strange is being brought before Professor X and the rest of the Illuminati. What did Strange do that Mordo called a desecration of reality? And the most obvious answer is what transpired in Spider-Man No Way Home. Strange cast a spell that literally fractured the multiverse, and even though the Forget Peter Parker spell seemingly fixed the problem, perhaps that very tearing caused irreparable damage. However, Strange also mentions,
Every night, I dream the same dream. The nightmare begins.
perhaps these nightmares are visions of other universes' demise, universes that we believe were destroyed at the hands of Wanda Maximoff, but more specifically at the hands of the entity known as the Scarlet Witch. That would explain why Strange seeks out Wanda and asks her what she knows about the multiverse.
What do you know about the multiverse?
Maybe in his nightmares he's seen the destruction Wanda is capable of, so he decides to warn her of her Elseworld actions in hope of preventing them from happening in their reality. Or maybe he's recruited Wanda to help him stop a variant of herself that he fears is coming to their reality, and the best weapon to take down a Scarlet Witch is the Scarlet Witch. It's even possible that evil variant Scarlet Witch is sending the visions to Strange. After all, we saw her give the Avengers nightmares in Age of Ultron. But then Strange's plan to use Wanda could backfire. Using Wanda could be what indirectly causes the MCU Scarlet Witch to fulfill the prophecy of Strange's nightmare. Wanda could be placed on a warpath directly caused by Strange's meddling, and that is why Strange is under arrest. So, in rolls Professor X and the Illuminati. You see, Wanda's most popular story arc in the comics was House of M. In that story, Wanda can't cope with the loss of her kids after she finds out that they were imaginary and she created them. So she has a mental breakdown and rewrites reality to bring back her children. Does any of this sound familiar?
Nothing to worry about.
Well, nothing to worry about outside.
So it looks like Multiverse of Madness is going to be borrowing heavily from that House of M comic line, which is a very X-Men-centric story. In the comics, Wanda is a mutant and the daughter of Magneto. So it only makes sense that we'd have some X-Men characters along for the ride.
No, we have to keep going. Someone will come along.
In the comics, we've seen Professor X struggle with what to do about Wanda's immense power and internal rage. In the Fox X-Men films, we've seen a similar story beat play out between him and Jean Grey. So in those Fox movies, we learned that Jean was an incredibly gifted telepath. She had such raw power that Professor Xavier had to hold her back.
When she was a girl, I created a series of psychic barriers to isolate her powers from her conscious mind.
In The Last Stand, this raw power manifested itself and took over her mind, and she became the Phoenix. Now, in that First Class timeline, it plays out a little differently. In Apocalypse, we see that she already has some kind of internal fire Phoenix power inside of her. But then, in the movie Dark Phoenix, we see a cosmic fiery force actually attach itself to her. Now, in the comics, Jean was originally possessed by a fiery cosmic entity called the Phoenix Force. This force craved destruction and destroyed a sun and killed billions of people. That's the Dark Phoenix saga that we never got to see on screen. Instead, we got this.
Walk to me.
So what if Illuminati Xavier had a different star pupil with reality-breaking powers who turned evil and killed everyone? Instead of Jean Grey, this star pupil was Wanda Maximoff. Jean Grey and Wanda Maximoff are two very similar characters. They're both mutants, they have powers like energy manipulation and telepathy, they have a close relationship with Professor X, and eventually their minds are corrupted, making them into grave cosmic threats. In the comics and films, Charles holds Jean back out of fear for how powerful and dangerous she could become. But when Jean is taken over by the Phoenix Force, her powers are fully unlocked and amplified. But with that, her mind is also corrupted. She begins to seek nothing but destruction, chaos, and control.
The power to create and the power to destroy.
The Phoenix is known to have the power to destroy and recreate reality itself. So again, I ask, sound familiar? The Scarlet Witch vision that Wanda sees unlocks her powers like the Phoenix unlocked Jean's potential, and it appears as a woman in flames like the Phoenix. The Scarlet Witch is a nexus being, and that means that she's a constant across all multiverses. She's like the center of a wheel that everything spins around. And just like Phoenix, she has the ability to wield matter in and out of existence, the power to warp reality to her liking, and the power to destroy, everything. This makes me wonder if Marvel is going to take a slightly different approach to the characters of Wanda Maximoff and Jean Grey, by making them one and the same. Perhaps in different universes, this cosmic entity goes by different names. Sometimes it's the Phoenix, sometimes it's the Scarlet Witch.
It's your destiny to destroy the world.
But the power and its mission are always the same. Maybe Marvel will even take it a step further and make Wanda and Jean variants of one another, which could mean that this Xavier might be from the Fox X-Men films. And because he's dealt with Jean Grey and the Phoenix Force, he would recognize that the MCU's Scarlet Witch is the same cosmic threat, but just with a different name.
Wow.
But wait, Wanda is in the X-Men universe when she's a little girl.
Yes, that's true, we do see Pietro's sister, but she's never called Wanda on screen. We just assume that's who she is. Heck, Peter's variant in the MCU is a guy named Boner. There are no rules here. But it is also possible that the Xavier in Multiverse of Madness is a variant that we've never met before, a Xavier who's witnessed his universe destroyed by the Scarlet Witch.
Jean Grey is the only Class 5 mutant I've ever encountered, her potential practically limitless.
So what could the Scarlet Witch have done in Xavier's reality? Maybe she uttered the words, "No more mutants," like she does in the comics. Now, this was a cataclysmic event in the books, which took the powers away from 90% of the world's mutants. And some people have even theorized that the MCU Wanda has already uttered this phrase in the MCU, and that's why there's no mutants. The theory also states that the spell would have also worked similarly to the Forget Peter Parker spell that Strange cast in No Way Home, causing everyone to forget the mutants ever existed. As far as that theory goes, I'm not exactly sure when Wanda would have said no more mutants. Maybe as a child, she no longer wanted to be a mutant because she was burdened with her powers. Or maybe in a fit of rage, she screamed no more mutants, and that wiped mutants from existence in the MCU along with their memory. I don't think that's too likely, but I do think it's very likely that she and Pietro were mutants with latent abilities. Maybe Hydra's experiments resurfaced her mutant powers. Maybe this is the truth that Xavier wants to tell Strange. Maybe Xavier is from the mainline MCU and has been one of the forgotten and was one of the few who kept his powers. Of course, an easier explanation for the mutants' absence is that they're just not existing in the MCU. Yet. But with Wanda being a Nexus being, a constant throughout the multiverse, that means that she exists in theoretically all universes, meaning that every universe has a Scarlet Witch, or, like we theorized before, a Phoenix. Or maybe it's not even Wanda who's the Nexus being. It's this Phoenix Force / Scarlet Witch entity. Maybe this entity travels throughout the multiverse, consuming realities, like Agatha said.
It's your destiny to destroy the world.
Now back to Xavier and the implications of his return. Could Patrick Stewart's return to the role mean that we'll also be seeing James McAvoy make a comeback?
Oh, yes.
Could McAvoy become the mainline MCU's Professor X? He is the younger version of Patrick Stewart's Professor X, and, say what you will about some of his X-Men movies, but McAvoy was a great Charles Xavier.
There's so much more to you than you know. Not just pain and anger. It's good, too. I felt it.
McAvoy's return could also mean the return of fan favorites like Michael Fassbender's Magneto, Evan Peters' Quicksilver, if they can clean up the whole Ralph Boner thing, and, if there is a god, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine.
Go yourself.
Hugh has been very insistent that he's done with the character after Logan, but, like we said before, if anyone can make something happen, it's Kevin Feige. Patrick Stewart also said that he was done playing Professor X after Logan because it was such a beautiful ending. But here we are.
We should tell him the truth.
I'm so excited to see what kind of rapport Doctor Strange and Professor X will have as two of the MCU's biggest minds, from the scientific discussions revolving around the multiverse to the philosophical discussions of right and wrong. And don't even get me started on the possibilities for Doctor Strange, Professor X, and the other members of the Illuminati all battling together against the Scarlet Witch.
Let's get ready to rumble!
But let me know what you think of these theories. Are you excited to see Professor X in the MCU? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.